Imagine standing on a dusty main street. It's 1881. The air is so dry it cracks your lips. You're staring at a man 30 feet away who wants to kill you. Your heart is hammering against your ribs like a trapped bird. Now here's the question. In that moment, what matters more? How fast you can move your hand, or how calm you can keep your mind?
I feel like the movies tell us it's speed. It's always about the quick draw, right? The blur of motion.
And that's exactly why most people in the movies end up dead. In the real West and in the boardroom, the blur is a liability. The survivor is the one who understands a very specific paradox. You have to be slow in a hurry.
That sounds like a Zen riddle, not a business strategy. But we are here to talk about exactly that intersection. We're diving into The Gunfighter's Guide to Business by Rich Hoffman. It's a book that takes the mythology of the Wild West, the duels, the cattle barons, the code of honor, and applies it to modern capitalism. I'm Chloe.
And I'm Alex. And honestly, Chloe, when I first saw this title, I rolled my eyes. I thought, great, another book telling CEOs they're warriors because they sent a stressful email.
It does have that alpha male energy on the cover, doesn't it?
It does. But once you actually look at what Hoffman is doing, and keep in mind, he's a competitive fast draw shooter himself, not just a theorist. He's getting at something deeper. He's arguing that the gunfighter isn't a chaotic agent of violence. They are, or at least the successful ones were, hyper-disciplined risk managers. They were arguably the first freelancers.
Okay, so before we get into the shooting mechanics of business, let's set the stage. Because the Wild West wasn't just a movie set, it was a developing economy, right?
Exactly. Think about the late 19th century. You have the East Coast, which is established, regulated, industrial. Then you have the West. It's a vacuum. No infrastructure, very little law, high risk, and potentially infinite reward. It was the original venture capital landscape. Hoffman's book builds on this idea that we are currently living in a new frontier, whether that's the digital economy or literally space exploration, and the rules of the civilized world don't always apply.
So, in this analogy, the gunfighter isn't an outlaw. They're, what, a consultant?
Historically, they were problem solvers. If you look at the reality, men like Wild Bill Hickok or even Wyatt Earp weren't just running around shooting people for fun. They were often hired security, lawmen, or independent contractors protecting assets, mining claims, stagecoaches, cattle drives. They were brought in to stabilize volatile markets. Hoffman uses this to pivot to his core thesis. Business is a series of high-stakes duels, and how you prepare for them determines if you survive.
Let's talk about that preparation. You mentioned fast draw earlier. Hoffman apparently uses this sport as a teaching tool in the book. What is the business lesson from drawing a gun?
It comes down to the most famous quote attributed to Wyatt Earp, which Hoffman leans on heavily, which is, "Fast is fine, but accuracy is final."
I've heard that. You must learn to be slow in a hurry.
Right. In business, we are obsessed with first mover advantage, move fast and break things. Hoffman challenges that. He points out that in a gunfight, if you draw 0.1 seconds faster than the other guy, but you miss, and he draws slower but hits you in the chest, you lose. The speed didn't matter, the accuracy was the only metric that counted.
That's actually a really solid critique of startup culture. We see so many companies burn through cash to blitzscale, drawing fast, but they have no product market fit. They miss the target.
Precisely. Hoffman argues for what he calls ghosting it.
Ghosting? Like not texting someone back?
No, though that would be a very different business book. In the context of fast draw and motor learning, ghosting refers to the mental rehearsal of a movement. You practice the path of the hand without actually touching the gun, or you visualize the perfect shot until the neural pathways are burned in. It's about doing the work in the dark so that when the light hits you, the execution looks magical. It looks like a ghost moved your hand.
Oh, I like that. So ghosting it in management means the leader has prepared the culture or the strategy so thoroughly that execution happens automatically. It's invisible leadership?
That's the charitable interpretation, and the one I think Hoffman aims for. He talks about an obscure objective that allows leadership to evolve into a legendary culture. It's about presence without micromanagement. The gunfighter doesn't need to brandish the weapon constantly. The reputation of his skill, the ghost of his potential, stabilizes the room.
Okay, but I have to play devil's advocate here, Alex. This metaphor, it's incredibly individualistic. The Lone Ranger myth. Modern business is collaborative. It's about teams, psychological safety, empathy. Isn't relying on a gunfighter mentality kind of toxic? It sounds like it encourages people to view colleagues as competitors, to be outdrawn.
That is the biggest risk with this genre. Absolutely. If you take the metaphor too literally, you end up with a workplace full of people trying to be the top dog. But here's where the history provides a nuance that I think the book respects. The smartest gunfighters didn't work alone.
They had posses?
They had networks. Look at the Earp brothers. They were a unit. Or look at the concept of the code. One of the chapters in the book deals with John Chisholm, the famous cattle baron. Men like Chisholm didn't survive because they were the fastest shooters. They survived because they built systems and alliances. In a lawless land, your word was literally your bond. If you broke a contract in 1880 New Mexico, you didn't get sued, you got exiled or shot. So cowboy ethics, honesty, loyalty, finishing what you start, weren't just nice ideas, they were survival strategies.
So the Gunfighter's Guide is really about reputation management. Your brand is your life.
100%. Hoffman emphasizes that a gunfighter who lies or cheats loses his backing. In business terms, if you screw over your investors or your customers, you might win the quick draw. You might get that quick profit, but you won't survive the winter. The code is the regulatory framework you impose on yourself when the government isn't watching.
There's a chapter title I saw that I need you to explain. Charging Hell with a Bucket of Water.
Yes, it's an evocative image, isn't it?
It sounds terrified or brave. I can't decide.
It's usually used to describe a task that is noble but futile, or requires insane courage against impossible odds. In the business context, Hoffman seems to use it to talk about crisis management and the entrepreneur's delusion. You have to believe you can put out the fire in hell, or you'd never start the company. But there's a tactical side too. Sometimes you don't charge.
Because you'll just evaporate.
Right. A seasoned gunfighter knows when to walk away. There's a difference between bravery and suicide. In business, this is the sunk cost fallacy. A bad poker player or a bad gunfighter stays in the pot because they've already bet. The professional folds, takes the loss, and lives to play another hand. Hoffman really pushes this idea of situational awareness.
Situational awareness. That's the OODA loop stuff, right? Observe, orient, decide, act?
It is, though that's more military fighter pilot doctrine. For the gunfighter, it was reading the saloon. Who is drinking too much? Who is quiet in the corner? Where are the exits? Hoffman translates this to read the market. Who is the competitor quietly gaining market share while everyone watches the loud tech giant? If you're only focused on the person shouting at you, the obvious problem, you'll get flanked.
It's interesting because when we think of the Wild West, we think of chaos. But you're describing a system of hyper-rationality. You have to be calmer than everyone else.
That is the core irony. The Wild West required the most discipline. And I think that's why this book resonates with a certain type of entrepreneur. We are living in chaotic times. Supply chains breaking, AI changing everything, political instability. It feels like the frontier again. People are looking for a code that says, here is how you stand tall when the rules are changing every day.
But does it hold up? I mean, really, we aren't carrying Colts, we're carrying laptops. Does the metaphor break down when we talk about, say, HR or inclusive?
It can. If you interpret gunfighter as I am the law, you become a tyrant. You become the villain of the movie. But if you interpret it as Hoffman likely intends, As the person who takes ultimate responsibility for their own safety and success, it's empowering. It's about self-reliance. It's the antidote to the victim mentality. The world owes me nothing. I have my skills, my gun, my reputation, my code, and my speed, my work ethic.
It reminds me of that John Wayne quote, or maybe it was a character he played about how courage is being scared to death, but saddling up anyway.
Exactly. And Hoffman's ghosting concept adds that layer of professional competence. You don't just saddle up, you saddle up perfectly because you've done it 1,000 times in your head. You don't rely on luck.
So, if we boil down the Gunfighter's Guide to Business, it's not about shooting your competition.
No, it's about eliminating wasted motion. It's about clarity. Accuracy is final. If you are launching a product, don't launch a messy beta just to be fast. Launch the thing that works. Launch the thing that hits the target. That's the lesson.
It's a call for craftsmanship in an age of hustle.
That's a beautiful way to put it. The gunfighter is a craftsman of survival.
Well, I think I'm gonna walk into my next meeting with a little more Wyatt Earp energy. Less scrambling, more staring.
Just don't flip the table.
I'll try to keep the table upright. If you found this dive into cowboy capitalism interesting, pass this episode along to the person in your life who needs to slow down to speed up.